Hey guys, it's Sonny and Hickson here. Hickson's gonna be playing Payday 2 in the background while I read a nice creepypasta in the most, you know, storyteller-like voice possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my mic turned off so you can hear
Okay.
Sunny's crisp, like Pringles voice while I play Payday 2. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Okay, so this creepypasta is called Room Zero, and it's a sequel to a creepypasta called Abandoned by Disney. So, if you haven't read Abandoned by Disney, you should probably go read that because it's pretty scary. Okay, so Room Zero. It's been a while since I've written anything related to the Disney Corporation, and I'm sure you can understand why. A lot has been going on since my last post. I've received a lot of questions and concerns from folks who read my first-hand account of Mowgli's Palace, a resort that was built and abandoned by Disney. I want to thank everyone who mirrored my post. It's been taken down from a few places, mostly corporate sites that were easily leaned on by a larger power. However, for every nuked topic or disappearing blog post, it seems like 100 more have popped up. This is something they'll have to face. There's no turning back for them. None for me either. I'm definitely being followed. For the first month or two, I chalked it up to paranoia. Any casual glance or half smile in my direction set me off. Hair standing up on the back of my neck and everything. The first one, or rather, the first one I was actually able to spot, was a telephone worker milling around my apartment complex. He was middle-aged, doughy, dressed just as you expect. But something just seemed off about him. I couldn't place it, but I knew this wasn't just my imagination acting up. He was awkward and out of place, not somebody who was comfortable doing his routine job. I followed him around a corner, only to lose him there. When I turned back to go home, there he was, staring directly at me, about 10 feet behind me, expressionless and cold. Exploring? He asked. That was all he said, and then there was an accusing look and tone to his voice. Tell me, what blue-collar phone jockey does that? I guess that's the worst part. Never been safe, never feeling alone. That and the occasional Disney merchandise left somewhere for me to find. Little rubber Mickeys in the mailbox, and a Disney Adventures magazine on my bookshelf. They hide little Mickeys everywhere, three circles, one big, two small, and the silhouette of the famous mouse's head. I've started keeping a running list of Mickeys I've found. Coffee cup rings on my table, one big, two small. Colored glass bottles left on the doorstep, viewed from the top down, all red. Graffiti on the wall on my way to work, a huge earth, small sun and moon in the proper locations. They're everywhere. People have emailed me about this as well. If you repost anything I have to say, you're going to start finding those son of a bitch outlines. I guarantee it. The best one by far, one that actually made me laugh because of the horror of it all, was a drawing in chalk next to my car. I was a bit taken aback at first, walking through the parking garage, keeping an eye out for people following me. The outline seemed a perfect match for, well, a murder victim. You're probably familiar with it if you read my past posts. Written in yellow.
Okay, it's recording.
Yeah.
Alright, guys. Sorry about that. Payday closed for some reason. So, go
Yeah.
ahead, Sunny. Continue from where you left off.
Okay, continuing from where I left off. The outline seemed a perfect match for, well, a murder victim. You're probably familiar with it if you read my past posts. Written in yellow, in paint, I'm sure, was a single word. Retract. The only thing, the only good thing that has come out of all this is that I know I'm not the only one who's seen something they shouldn't have. I'm not going to give their names because, well, if I have to tell you why, you haven't been paying attention. Researcher goes to Disney parks whenever he can, all throughout the year. He's not going to have fun, enjoy the rides, etc. He's looking for the Gascots. There's been a long tradition, apparently, of people reporting strange patrons throughout the park. Silent, motionless, staring patrons of every age, shape, and size. Men and women, adults, children, and teens. Standing there, all wearing Disney-themed gas masks. Way back when, Disney would get tons of complaints about oddly dressed folks following others around the park. Folks who would then merge into crowds and disappear. Later on, the gas masks caused other folks to draw conclusions, and reports of possible terrorists and bombers started floating. All of these reports most likely went straight into the trash can. I know I can't find any sign of such occasions, reported on by the media, although you should be aware of the fact that Disney can pretty much control its press like no other. Researcher goes to the parks, talks to a few people, and tries not to draw any attention to himself. He'll just ask 3 or 4 families if they've seen his friend who's wearing a funny mask. He has yet to see a gascot for himself, though on one occasion, a child pointed him toward Frontier Town as he raced through the crowd. He heard a single voice ahead cry out, "Mommy, I want a Goofy Air mask, too." A fellow I'll call lifeguard worked in a Disney water park from 2001 to 2003. He stood at the top of a huge water slide and made sure none of the kids got too rowdy. He passed the kids through one at a time, telling them over and over again to be safe, keep their arms in, and so on. One day, as he tells it, this fat kid goes down the tube and doesn't come down at the other end. He sent 2 or 3 kids after him. The whole thing moves at a steady clip, or so you'd naturally expect if the fatty got stuck. The kids that follow him were stuck too. Not so. Only the big kid disappears. Everyone else comes out the other end, cheering and splashing like nothing's wrong. The lifeguard shuts down the ride, much to the aggravation of his waiting. Before he can go through any of Disney's strict procedures, splash! Fatty finally comes out. Staff members pulled the kid out of the water. He sank like a stone when his skin already blue and his eyes wide. All he would say was, "No face, kids," and stop squeezing. The kid was okay, in case you're wondering. He got carted off to the hospital. When lifeguard was told to open the slide back up, he made a big stink about how it clearly wasn't safe. Despite his complaints, he was threatened with firing and begrudgingly opened the slide again. From that point on, he kept a closer eye on the kids. Every so often, they come out in the wrong order. Never as stunned as the fat kid, but always with a vague look of concern, a dreamy half-stupor that seemed as if they were trying to figure out what just happened. They take on some water and choke a bit, and they never come back up to the ride again. I read his emails with the same sort of unease you might be feeling right now. I wanted him to share his own story, but in the end he didn't want to expose himself that way. I can't say I blame him. Snow White, which wasn't the actual role she played, was a character in the park. She had a nice little tidbit for me. You know what happens when a costumed employee drops dead in his suit? Like 1 second he's taking a picture of little Jimmy, and the next he's had a fatal stroke. A second costume mascot in the area just had to sit with the corpse on a curb or bench and wait for a designated dry cleaner to arrive and cart the body away in a discreet manner. All the while, patrons have no idea they're sitting with a dead body for photo ops. Feel free to check your photo albums at this point. That was bad, but another fellow, janitor, completely went off the charts. Disney World, and probably others, is built with a series of underground tunnels just below your feet, 3 stories worth. Anything and everything you can imagine is down there for use of the employees. They're called utilidors, utility corridors. Basically, that's the reason you don't see characters out of place or janitors wandering through the park. They pop in and out of hidden doors and travel a concealed town you're walking on. The janitor told me something that might be common knowledge, but was nonetheless news to me. Walt Disney had several apartments built into his parks. There's one above Cinderella's castle, and there's one in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. They're all over the place. More than that, there are nightclubs, a movie theater, a bowling alley, and much more. All behind doors built right into the whimsical facades you pass by without a second look. Club 22 is one such hidden area. If you have the cash to join the exclusive club, you don't, then you'll have the access to it and more. Club 22 is a place where anything goes. Disney Corporation calls these places dark zones, spots where the squeaky clean visage of Mickey Mouse gives way to drinking, drugs, and, yes, sex. Conversely, the rest of the park is the bright zone, with a few gray zone utilidors between. As the janitor has said, it wasn't always that way. It was more of a slow decline and the gradual relaxation of social norms within the elite group. The reason he knows all this, you may have already guessed. He's cleaned it. After a lengthy background check and a non-disclosure form, moved up from park attendant to one of the dark zone cleaning crew. Now, before you get some satanic human sacrifice vision in your head, janitor saw nothing of the sort. Lots of empty alcohol bottles? Yes. Used condoms scattered all over the floor? Yes. Oh yeah, he cleaned up his share of blood, piss, and vomit, but it was all down to the unrestricted behavior of patrons as opposed to any sort of cult behavior. At least that's how he sees it in retrospect. All the trash, that profane shit, went into a furnace and mingled with the smoke of a quaint cottage's chimney. If you've ever been to Disney World, you've breathed ultra-condensed sin. Backing up this information was a guy named Hammer. Hammer mailed me the old-fashioned way, although I don't know how he got my home address. He sent me photocopies of work papers proving his employment with the instruction to burn them when I was convinced, which I did gladly. Hammer worked.
Okay, we're back for the freaking second time. Every time I open a new payday, every time like I just got a kill and then boom, I get a freaking nightclub. Every time I was doing just a regular thing and it closed again. So go ahead, Sonny, where you left off.
Where did I leave off?
I don't know. Read me where you last were, like 2 seconds ago.
Okay. Here, no, I got it.
Okay. Alright,
You
Merry
can turn
Christmas.
off your mic. Okay, so continuing from where I left off. Backing up this information was this guy named Hammer. Hammer mailed me the old-fashioned way, though I don't know how he got my home address. He sent me photocopies of work papers proving his employment, with the instruction to burn them when I was convinced, which I did gladly. This guy named Hammer worked around the Disney World park doing demolition and construction. At one point, he approached the superior regarding some strange construction plans. There was a wide, rectangular area marked off on the blueprints, about the size of a supermarket. The area was left unnamed and only bore the words, "Do not dig." Not only was his superior in the dark, but he was super fucking purposely in the dark. He didn't want to talk about it, and didn't want to know about it, and ended the conversation with, "This space was intentionally left blank. Now get out of my face." But Hammer didn't get it. The area seemed like a waste of space, and it was directly conflicting with the work his team had been given. He started poking around the area on his off time, finding only a derelict steel door and a great span of concrete just behind. It was a supermarket's worth of blank gray floor. Soon after, Hammer started picking up gascots out of the crowds. Unlike all other reports, the people, the things, would stand in full view of the guy. They'd cluster together in the distance, or they'd just be pressed into a wall when he turned a corner. He said they moved weird, like they were weak or injured, like a deer that's been run down by a hunter and can't flee anymore. The gas mask, the Disney character faces with filters jammed in. He noticed that they seemed wet on the inside, like condensation on a car window. Tiny beads of water glimmered behind the glass, making it impossible for any of them to actually see. Probing further, Hammer started asking questions of anyone and everyone who had been working in the park for a decade or more. He had dead ends throughout until he was directed to Ida, an elderly woman who worked in the restaurant on Main Street. She'd been there since way back, and though nobody had the balls to ask directly, everyone knew she had plenty of terrible stories to tell. Hammer asked about the empty space and about the gas mask customers, and at first he thought he would receive the two same non-answers he'd gotten so far. She was quiet, eerily quiet. "Room 0, she croaked, a single shaking hand placed to her cheek as if she were giving a little girl, fearing a father's punishment. She didn't meet the man's gaze for the entire conversation. Room 0, as it turned out, was yet another of the apartments in Club 22. However, its sheer size and its spot deep beneath the park set it apart from any of the fun dark zones. It was a bomb shelter. Room 0 was built to withstand a massive attack, be it conducted by foreign or domestic enemies. Room 0 was to be stocked with enough rations to feed the entire park's average number of patrons at any given moment, and housed a smaller yet lavish panic room for Disney's executives. During World War II, official Disney gas masks were actually produced for children to wear in the event of an attack. The idea that it would be less scary for kids if Mickey's face was emblazoned on the wartime safety device. Yes, I know the obvious problems with that. During the Cold War scare of the 60s, when Disney World was constructed, Room 0 was stocked with similar masks, whether they cared about the fears of children or just callous branding. The things found their way down there. What's more, some genius decided that kids would then be frightened by the gas masks their parents wore. And so, all masks, adult and child, were to be made to this extremely insane concept. Ida described it as treating a wound with some lemon juice. None of this explained what Hammer had been seeing, though, not only the seemingly supernatural experiences, but the emptied out room as well. I've been in there, he explained. There's nothing but a cement floor and four walls. No, Ida shook her head and covered her mouth, stifling a sob. You've been on top of it. Someone or something sounded the alarm one day when the park was at full capacity. The warning was clear. It was supposedly an air attack. Security ushered everyone down into their tremendous shelter. There, they were ordered to put on their gas masks and to hunker down for the duration of the assault. Everything was quiet for about 30 minutes, save for the crying children and the frightened whispers. No one wanted to die, and so they were thankful, in a way, for this strange measure of safety. Then, the first scream rang out. Hey! A man shouted. Quit pinching! Waves of shrieks and yelps rippled throughout the crowd, from one wall to the other, back and forth. Who's running around? Settle down, someone hollered. Who's laughing? This isn't funny.
Ow, who stepped on my foot?
Despite security guards urging to calm down and keep their cool, the crowd became more and more agitated until, finally, after nearly an hour of madness, the lights flickered, then died. What followed could only be described as utter chaos. In the dark, only the wails of the young and anguished cries of adults could be heard in a massive, swelling din that bloodied the ears of all within that black echo chamber. A group of staff members and a select few patrons made it out the door, ready to face the war above rather than the insanity below. What they found, of course, was a desolate yet untouched theme park. The music continued to play, echoing through the silent Storybrooke towns. Upon returning to Room Zero, the few who stood at the top of the steel staircase that led down into the pitch blackness heard no sign of the previous fray. There was only silence. Ida herself descended that staircase despite the begging of those she left above. She reached the reinforced doors, herself now awash in the darkness and hearing only the buzzing in her ears. A single voice came out of the darkness. The echo made it impossible to tell whether the mocking, raspy voice was at the back of the bomb shelter or if it was right in front of her face. Shut the door, dear. You're letting out the cold. Gripped by terror, she did just that. Within days, the entire thing, shelter, staircase, all of it, was covered with feet upon feet of cement. Air systems and generators above its ceiling were removed, creating a large empty space. They're all still down there, Ida told Hammer. Down there with whoever that was. You might notice I've used Ida's name. Unfortunately, she passed away soon after telling her story. Accidental fall, supposedly after getting out of bed to turn on the light. Such a company devotee, the paper reported, that her entire bedroom was covered with Mickey Mouse stickers. And that is the end of the creepypasta. Hickson, you can jump back in.
That was it?
Yep.
Oh.
You're exhausted.
How was it?
What was your opinion of this creepypasta?
I know, I've heard it twice already, and it still doesn't make sense.
See what I think? They say that there's a bomb shelter down here. And all these people are actually just ghosts wearing a gas mask because whatever that, like, crazy Mickey Mouse thing down there was, murdered all of them brutally.
Okay.
I don't really think that somebody here was actually trying to make a creepypasta. They're just, like, making fun of Disney for being disgusting and sick. Because they must really not like Disney Channel.
Yeah, Sonny, it's all about the Disney Channel.
Yep. They don't like anything Disney related. Which is why they're making up these sick stories about Disney Corporation.
So that's it?
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this creepypasta?
4.
I'd give it a 7.
Okay.
For, just creativity.
True.
And that's it.
So was Hammer like a Mickey? in a suit.
I think what they're trying to say is, you know, if you see all of these things that, you know, Dis Disney World does underground, it's actually pretty weird because they say that there's just like there's I don't know, it's very hard to understand.
So we should
There's
totally
only like
bomb Disneyland one day
yeah,
and
because
find out.
you know now we know what's under Disneyland. Just like
Hello, Yen.
just
Sonny, do you promise me that one day we're gonna get 3 Humvees with M1 Brownings on the top, the military issued Browning that goes on the top of Humvees and Jeeps?
machine gun.
Yeah, and we're gonna go up and we're gonna rip up Disneyland.
Uh-huh.
We're gonna keep all civilians. We're gonna keep them all alive, of course. We're not gonna do any casualties.
Yeah, then we're gonna finish it off Olympus Has Fallen style.
Yeah, we're gonna get
Disney
matadors and we're gonna fire into the floors and we're gonna find this room 0 and we're gonna continue. We're gonna make Mickey in half and then we're gonna put his head above my computer. So and I want his blood dripping so I can drink his blood. Okay, well.
Well, we'll see you guys in the next creepypasta.
Yeah.
Bye.
Anyway.